Alright, so a lot of my subscribers on my main channel, KleshGuitars, have been asking, they want to see my guitars. Now, the KleshGuitars channel originally started out to be a guitar channel. That's what it was meant to be. However, as you know, it turned into something completely different, and now I kind of feel weird putting guitar stuff over there because it's like a treasure hunting and travel channel. This channel here is where we're going to do the guitar stuff, I suppose. And anyway, if you guys don't know, I am a luthier by trade. I was trained in 2002 to 2003 at the Roberto Venn School of Luthery in Phoenix, Arizona. And then directly after that, I was hired into the First Act custom shop, or pro shop, or studio. They called it the studio for artists. It was basically just 7 luthiers in like a room, a glass encased room in this office building. You know, we were like kind of like the 7 dwarves, we used to call ourselves. We had a violin maker, and the rest of us were guitar makers. And we just basically would build guitars for different artists. Like, I mean, we made guitars for a lot of, I could name drop all day, but one important one that I should mention is Richie Sambora, because his guitar tech, when he came to the shop to work on these custom guitars that I was building for Richie, him and I were working together. The guy's name was Chris Hofschneider. He passed away in 2016. Rest in peace, Chris. Awesome guy, great friend. A little crazy, but I think we all were. But he was hilarious. Anyway, Chris and I became really good friends over these Richie Sambora guitars. And Chris worked for Michael Tobias over in Woodstock, New York. So, long story short, Chris introduced me to Michael Tobias over in Woodstock. Michael hired me as an apprentice for him. And by the way, I worked up in Boston for 1 year. That's how long the apprenticeship was. And then after that, I went directly to Woodstock, New York, and I worked with Michael and Chris for on and off for like 5-6 years, something like that. And during that time, I had my own repair shop at my apartment or my house or wherever I was living at the time. I moved like 3 or 4 times during that time period. But I always had a repair shop in my house, and I was building custom guitars out of my kitchen and out of my living room and everything. I ended up having a couple orders for guitars. I did tons of repairs, and in my opinion, doing repairs is actually a really good way to keep up your chops as a woodworker and a luthier in general. So I always had a repair shop. And I've been doing that since 2003. It is now 2020. However, in 2016, when I moved to Colorado from Pennsylvania, that's the last time I had a shop. So I actually had a full-scale guitar repair shop in West Hazleton, Pennsylvania. And when I moved to Colorado, I sold all my tools, and I've been so bored, I've been making YouTube videos. Okay, so this guitar is probably my favorite design of all of my designs, just because it is perfect. It's so ergonomical. It feels perfect in your leg. Even though there's not a big cut here for your arm, like a comfort carve, it's still extremely comfortable. I have this one here. This is called the Succubus design. It is made out of Alder. It's a solid Alder body. This is a bolt-on neck, which I actually prefer now. Strings through body, Hipshot bridge on the other side. This is the first time I made a control cavity with screws in it. And it's not inlaid, it's kind of sticking out right there. But this is the first one ever built. This is a prototype. There's the Hipshot bridge. I'll show you all that in a second. This guitar has a Macassar ebony neck. You can actually see the stripes in the ebony if you look hard enough. And this has got the Zeti Headstock design. It's a little bit different than the others. I actually really like this design too. So let's take it over to the bench and we'll get a closer look at it. Okay, so as you can see, this guitar here is pointy, and that's what it's supposed to be. I designed this guitar specifically for metal, and yeah, I didn't want it to look like any other pointy type guitars. I wanted it to be more curvy and just better looking. You can see it's got a lot of detail in the veneers. I've got a lot of detail in the woodworking. We can go over that in a second here. First, let's talk about the hardware. Just a Hipshot bridge. That's what I always go for with my stop tail bridges. I go with Hipshot. This is a Seymour Duncan. I'm not sure what kind of pickup it is, but it sounds really good. I really don't know what it's called. I think it might be one of those dime bag ones, or I really don't know. On the fretboard we have mother of pearl inlay all the way up, 24 fret, 6 string. So this top wood here, this is actually called spalted maple. You can see these black lines all through it. That's actually mold or fungus that started attacking the tree because it died and started getting all this fungus and stuff through it, but it looks really cool. Unfortunately, it's extremely difficult to work as a woodworker because it's really soft. So you have to be very careful when sanding, especially when doing all these edges and everything. As you can see, I've got some pointy areas here. I've got a bevel around it too, which makes it even more difficult because that stuff has to be crisp and perfect. And when you got soft wood, it's real hard to sand that stuff. If anybody's worked with spalted maple before, you know exactly what I mean. Now this is a prototype guitar, so it's not 100% perfect. It's the first one I ever built like this. Ones that I sold are perfect. But as you can see here, this is not perfect. There's like a little bump right there. I had difficulty sanding that, and yeah, that's all it takes. One little split second too long with the sander, and if this was going to a customer, this thing would be firewood. Now for the strap button, again, I had some difficulty deciding where to put it. I was going to put it back here, but I didn't do that because I know from the Manta guitar that it didn't balance. So I had to figure out a way to put it here again, so I did that scoop again. I just flattened it out, and it made it extremely difficult to sand this thing. As you can see, this all had to be done, you know, by hand, making sure that I left that little point right there and didn't sand it down. I went to that black part at the very tip on that that laminate right there. There's a lot of detailed work that went into this guitar. I actually built this guitar in my kitchen in Saugerties, New York is where I built this in 2008 I built this guitar. So this headstock design here is different than the others. I called this one the Zeti Headstock. My friend Chris, he named it, so that's what we're keeping. So he called it the Zeti. So again, we have the ebony head cap. Instead of a curly maple inlay, this is spalted maple inlay, which makes it even more difficult because it's real soft. But I made sure I got that done, inlaid it in there perfectly, and you can hardly tell. One of my favorite things about this guitar is the back of the peg head here. It's got what this is called a volute. So when you're playing, your thumb goes up against it, and it's makes it easier to play. It feels great, this guitar. This is my favorite guitar to play. So of all the guitars that I own, this is my favorite one by far to play. It's the 8th guitar I ever built. Alright, so how does it sound? One thing about this guitar, the neck is actually a little bit thicker than the others. It's got like more of a round feel. It just feels perfect. This guitar is awesome. But again, it's built from metal. Right? So I mean, I play this, it's just so awesome. I really like this guitar. Out of all of them, if I had to choose one, this would be the one. It's just so much fun to play. I keep this one tuned to E standard. With E standard, you can play most songs like Megadeth and Metallica, a lot of thrash bands and stuff, even up into like black metal, Tokay and Emperor. A lot of bands use E standard. But even though I don't have it tuned down, I just really like playing this thing. If you'd like to hear this guitar being played more, I do have a guitar covers playlist, and I use this guitar to play a few other songs. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll see you on the next one.